The hospital doesn't actually begin when you walk through those doors. It starts earlier than that. It starts in a quiet kitchen that doesn't feel like a place where big decisions should happen, holding a cup of coffee you forgot to drink while it was still hot. You're staring at your phone, and it's showing you two things at the same time: how much you owe and where you're expected to show up next. There's an email confirming your first shadowing shift. Clean, simple, just a time, a place, and a name. It shouldn't feel like a big deal, but it does. Because somewhere along the way, you already told people who you're going to be. You've said it enough times that it sounds real now. Like it's already decided. Like all that's left is to follow through. And yet, standing there, nothing about it feels certain. You thought this path would start with helping people. It doesn't. It starts with being watched, measured, quietly evaluated long before you're ever trusted with anything that matters. Measured on things that don't feel fair yet. How much pressure you can hold without showing it. How long you can stay in uncertainty without breaking. How much of your life you're willing to invest into something that hasn't proven itself back to you. Before the hospital ever puts a life in your hands, it needs to know something first. Can you survive what it's about to put you through? And the part that stays with you is realizing that test has already started. So if you're going to keep going, you should at least understand what this path actually does to you, at every level. Subscribe, because this isn't just a story about becoming a doctor. It's about what the system quietly takes from you, long before it gives anything back. Level 1. The applicant. Survival before the white coat. It's late. Later than you planned. The kind of late where the building has emptied out hours ago, but you're still there, telling yourself you'll leave after one more thing. Your laptop is open, and your entire life is reduced to 3 tabs. A list of schools, your scores, your bank account. That's it. No patients, no hospital, no real responsibility yet. Just numbers. You check your GPA like it's something fragile that could drop if you look away too long. You track your hours like they're currency you're trying to save up. You send applications that cost more than they should, and then you wait, longer than you expected, for responses that may or may not come. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, something shifts. You start to realize a truth that doesn't get said out loud. At this level, you're not competing to help people. You're competing to be allowed into the system that decides who gets to. That's a very different game. Because effort matters, but it's not the only thing that matters. Where you started matters. Who you know matters. How long you can afford to keep going without results. That matters more than people admit. There are nights when you close your laptop and just sit there, staring at the screen after it goes black, seeing your own reflection and wondering if this is actually building towards something real, or if you're just trying to stay consistent with something you already told everyone you'd become. And then your phone buzzes, an interview. For a second, everything lifts. The pressure, the doubt, all of it feels like it might have been worth something. But that feeling doesn't last long. Because when you read it again, slower this time, you start to see what it really means. This isn't the end of the pressure, it's the next layer of it. Every yes doesn't just move you forward, it pulls you deeper. More years, more debt, more time committed to something that becomes harder and harder to walk away from. You're not just getting closer to becoming a doctor, you're getting further from the version of your life that still had options. And that's the moment it clicks. Getting in was never the finish line. It was just the point where the real cost begins. Level 2. The medical student. Stability that feels like debt. Now you're inside, your name is on the list, your badge works. People around you say it differently now, like it means something solid. You're in medical school. From the outside, it looks like you made it. But from the inside, it feels like you stepped into something that doesn't slow down. Your days stop belonging to you. You wake up before you feel ready. Sit through lectures that stack information faster than your brain can organize it. Move from one subject to another like you're trying to keep up with a language that keeps expanding while you're still learning the basics. Everything builds on everything. Miss one piece, and the next one feels heavier. And while your calendar fills up, your bank account moves in the opposite direction. You're not earning anything yet. You're borrowing. For tuition. For rent. For exams. For food. For the chance to stay where you are. And every week, without anything dramatic happening, the number quietly grows in the background. Acceptance was supposed to feel like a reward. Instead, it feels like a contract you didn't fully understand when you signed it. Then you step into a simulation, a controlled room, a patient, a checklist somewhere behind the scenes. You've studied everything you're supposed to say. You know the structure, the questions, the sequence. But the moment the patient looks at you and waits, something changes. Your voice doesn't sound the same. It tightens. You hesitate. You skip something small, then another thing you knew 5 minutes ago. And suddenly, it hits you. Knowing something and being able to carry it in front of another human being are not the same thing. That's the crack. Because medicine isn't just about having the right answer. It's about delivering it while someone is watching, while someone is scared, while your own body is trying to rush you out of the moment. You walk out with a passing result, but it doesn't feel like you passed. It feels like you were warned. You're not trying to get in anymore. Now the system is trying to figure out if you can become believable enough to stay. And the closer you get to real patience, the more obvious it becomes. The next level won't be about studying harder. It will be about being seen while it matters. Level 3, the sub-intern, competence under observation. By now, you don't look lost anymore, at least not from the outside. You know where to go, what to open, what to say first. You move through the hospital with just enough familiarity that people stop noticing you're new. But nobody mistakes you for the answer. You're close to the work, but not trusted with all of it. You follow the team, review labs, read notes, rehearse your presentations quietly before saying them out loud. There's a structure you rely on. Patient summary, overnight events, vitals, labs, assessment, plan. You know the format. But knowing the format doesn't protect you from the room, because once you start speaking, everything becomes visible. The resident is listening. The attending is watching. The family is trying to read your tone more than your words. Say too little and you seem unprepared. Say too much and you expose what you don't understand. Guess and you cross a line you don't get to cross twice. This is where competence starts to change meaning. It's not about knowing everything. It's about knowing exactly where you stop. One morning, you catch something small, a mismatch in a medication dose. Easy to miss. Quiet enough that no one would have blamed you for overlooking it. But you say it. The room pauses. Someone checks. Then again. And just like that, the direction shifts. Not because you were confident, because you were careful. That stays with you. Because now you see it clearly. Competence in this system isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It shows up in attention, in restraint, in the willingness to speak without pretending. And once the system sees that in you, it starts to trust you with more, which sounds like progress, until you realize what always comes with it. Responsibility. And responsibility never arrives quietly. Level 4. The intern. Leverage without authority. Now the badge says doctor, and that word changes how people look at you, faster than it changes how you feel about yourself. You walk in with a pager, notes in your pockets, and a constant tension in your chest every time someone calls your name. You can place orders now, sign notes, call consults, speak to families. On paper, it looks like power, but in reality, it's responsibility without control. You're moving all the time, but nothing truly belongs to you. You pass information between people who each hold a piece of the system. The senior sees the strategy. The attending makes the call. The nurses understand what actually works. The protocol limits what you can do, and you're in the middle, trying to keep everything from slipping. That's the real structure. The hospital doesn't run on titles. It runs on people who know where things break. And then one day, you almost become the point where something breaks. It's small, easy to miss, a detail that blends in with everything else, until someone catches it. A nurse who has seen this before. She doesn't make a scene, doesn't embarrass you, just asks a question that makes you look again. And she's right. You feel it immediately. That heat, that instinct to explain, to defend, to cover the gap. But none of that matters. Because in that moment, you see something clearly for the first time. Authority is written on your badge, but safety lives somewhere else. After that, you change. You listen more carefully. You move faster, but quieter. You stop treating correction like something to resist and start seeing it for what it is. Protection. Because the system doesn't care if you look like a doctor. It cares if you can be useful before your confidence catches up. And once you survive that, you're no longer just trying to avoid failing. You're about to become responsible for people who might. Level 5. The senior resident. Scale through other people. By the time you reach this level, the hospital stops feeling confusing. It starts feeling predictable. Not because it's simple, but because you can finally hear how it moves underneath everything. You know when something is about to go wrong before anyone says it out loud. You can feel it in the silence, in the way someone hesitates, in the way a chart doesn't quite match the story. It's early. Earlier than most people realize. And you're already standing in front of the patient list, looking at names that aren't just names anymore. Each one is a problem, a risk, a situation that can turn in the wrong direction if it's not handled at the right moment. And now, people are looking at you, not for answers to one case, for direction across all of them. Interns wait for your instructions. Medical students wait for clarity. Nurses ask for decisions. Consultants call back expecting you to know what you want. You used to think being better meant handling your own work perfectly. Now you understand something different. The better you get, the less your work belongs to you alone. You don't just treat patients anymore, you manage attention. You decide what gets seen first, what can wait, what looks small but isn't. You hold multiple timelines in your head at once, constantly adjusting, constantly prioritizing. This is where leverage actually shows up. Not money, not status, people. Your output now depends on how well other people function, and how well you can keep them functioning under pressure. And that changes you in ways you don't notice right away. You become more aware, more selective with your words. You start noticing the quiet ones, the ones who don't ask for help but need it. You notice the confident ones who might be missing something important. You start reading people the same way you read charts. And then it happens. An intern makes a mistake. Not a disaster, nothing catastrophic. It gets caught early, corrected before it causes harm. From the outside, it's nothing. But it doesn't feel like nothing. Because later, when things finally slow down, you realize something uncomfortable. That mistake doesn't feel separate from you. You trained them. You reviewed their work. You were the layer above them that was supposed to catch it. Their miss becomes yours. And that's when the weight shifts, because now you understand the real cost of moving up. The higher you go, the less failure has to come directly from your own hands to land on you. You start double-checking things you didn't have to before. You explain things more than you want to. You carry extra details because someone else might not be ready to carry them yet. And slowly, the job gets heavier. Not because you're struggling, because your responsibility has expanded beyond yourself. And once your decisions start shaping the decisions of others, the system stops asking if you can survive responsibility. It starts asking if you can carry it. Level 6. The attending. Power is exposure. Now everything points to you. Your name sits at the top. Your signature closes the loop. Your decision is what turns discussion into action. From the outside, this is what it was all leading to. The title, the income, the recognition, the sense that you finally arrived somewhere that matters. And for a moment, it feels like that. Then reality settles in. Because what you gain here isn't control, it's exposure. You start to see how the system actually works around you. How your income connects to productivity metrics you never thought about before. How every patient interaction exists inside a structure of billing codes, reimbursement rates, and documentation standards. You realize the work is still medicine. But the environment is something else entirely. And every decision you make now carries layers you can't ignore. A test might be necessary, but also questioned. A treatment might be right, but not covered. A patient might need time, but the system has already decided how much of it you're allowed to give. And still, when things get unclear, they look at you. Not the system, not the policies, you. Then comes the moment that changes everything. A decision where no one else will stand in front of it for you. There's no perfect answer, no clean path. Every option carries risk. Waiting is risky. Acting is risky. You go over everything again. The chart, the numbers, the conversations, the small details that might matter more than they look. And in the end, you decide. Not because you're certain, because uncertainty doesn't remove the responsibility to act. That's when something shifts permanently. Medicine stops feeling like something you're learning. It becomes something you are accountable for. Every choice leaves a mark, on the patient, on the outcome, on your record, on your mind. That's the truth no one can fully explain until you're here. Authority doesn't protect you, it exposes you. And once your name becomes the final answer, the next level is no longer about doing the work. It's about protecting everything the work can damage. Level 7. The department leader. Protection becomes the job. At this point, your world expands again, but not in the way you expected. You're no longer focused on individual cases. You're responsible for the environment where those cases happen. Doctors, nurses, schedules, budgets, outcomes, complaints, risk. Everything flows through your role in some way, whether you touched it directly or not. And the first thing that changes is your time. less time with patients, more time in rooms where decisions feel further away from the reason you started. Meetings about staffing, meetings about budgets, meetings about quality metrics, meetings about problems that don't have clean solutions but still need decisions. This is where leadership stops feeling like progression and starts feeling like defense. Because now you're holding tension from every direction. The board wants financial performance. Doctors want support. Nurses want safer conditions. Patients want attention. Insurers want lower costs. None of these are unreasonable, but they don't fit together cleanly. You thought this level would give you more ability to improve care. Sometimes it does. But most days, it feels like you're holding the system together so it doesn't fracture under its own weight. You learn to switch languages depending on who you're speaking to. Clinical, financial, operational, human. And then one decision forces everything into focus. A doctor on your team is exceptional, but difficult, highly skilled, efficient, valuable. But people around them are struggling. Nurses hesitate, residents withdraw. Complaints start to surface more frequently. Keeping them protects performance. Letting them go protects the people around them. There is no version of this decision that feels clean. And when you finally make it, you realize something uncomfortable. Leadership isn't the reward for surviving the system. It's the point where you become responsible for its consequences. That's the real shift. You're no longer just delivering care, you're protecting it. Protecting patients from mistakes, protecting staff from burnout, protecting the department from pressure that doesn't stop. And once you see the system this clearly, you also see how much of it exists above you. Because the next level isn't about departments, it's about the entire structure. Level 8, the health system executive. The hospital becomes a balance sheet. At the highest level, the hospital stops feeling personal. It becomes abstract. Not because the people disappear, but because there are too many to hold individually. You don't see patients anymore. You see patterns, numbers, trends, movement, occupancy rates, staffing gaps, financial performance, risk exposure, regional demand, resource allocation. You're no longer reacting to individual situations. You're shaping the system those situations happen inside. And this is where the emotional distance starts to grow. Not because you stopped caring, but because caring has to move through something else first. Data. Every decision now is supported by numbers, justified by projections, reviewed through outcomes that summarize thousands of individual moments into something manageable. But something gets lost in that translation, because numbers don't feel what they represent. And then you face a decision that forces that gap into the open. A service line isn't sustainable. The data is clear. Keeping it running drains resources. Closing it strengthens the system elsewhere. But you know what that really means. People will lose access. Care will become harder to reach. Delays will increase. Outcomes will shift, slowly, quietly. You make the decision anyway, not because it feels right, because within the system, it is the least wrong option. That's the truth at this level. The higher you rise, the more your decisions affect people you will never meet. And they will never know your name. They will only feel the result. This isn't the version of medicine you imagined. It's something else layered on top of it. Finance, policy, risk, survival. And once you see that clearly, power doesn't feel like control anymore. It feels like choosing which consequences you're willing to carry. Years pass. The hospital changes. New systems, new structures, new language for the same pressures. But some things don't change. You're walking through a quiet hallway late in the day, when most of the noise has settled and what's left feels heavier than before. And then, you see them. Someone younger, standing alone, white coat still new enough that it hasn't faded into routine yet. They're holding a cup they're not drinking, looking toward a set of doors like they're trying to decide something that doesn't have a clear answer. You recognize it immediately. That moment, that feeling, that version of yourself that thought this path was about one thing, and hadn't yet discovered everything else attached to it. For a second, everything compresses. Before the titles, before the pressure, before the decisions that followed you home. Back to something simpler. You wanted to help, that was it, and it was real. But it wasn't the whole story. Because this system doesn't just ask for your skill, it takes your time, your energy, your certainty, your relationships, your ability to see suffering without absorbing it. And if you stay long enough, it asks you to carry decisions that don't have clean answers. That's the part no one can fully explain. The hospital needs good people, but it doesn't promise to leave them unchanged. You look at them one more time. And you realize there's nothing simple you can say that would be completely true. So you don't say anything. You keep walking. And somewhere behind you, another version of this story begins again.
And somewhere behind you, another version of this story begin again. Would you still choose the white coat? If you know every version of yourself, it would cost.